Hello makers, thanks for joining me. Today I will show you a new process and tutorial on how to use receipts, something I know many of you have on hand to create ephemera and collage fodder. What you'll need is some rubbing alcohol, a spray bottle. You can feel free to use a pipette and of course receipts. And here I'm also using stencils and I'll be using stamps as well. So with receipts are just thermal paper, and I found out during COVID that receipts are kind of reactive to alcohol. I found this out because I had a lot of receipts in my car, and when I would spray my hand with alcohol to use as hand sanitizer, it would get on receipts. I noticed that the colors would change. So I started incorporating this into my actual journaling and when I wanted to create collage fodder because I love the look. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm taking a stencil and using a spray bottle full of alcohol to spray in between. And as you can see, you get this faint impression where the spray reacts to the paper, and it's very easy. It dries very quickly. So that was one tip. The other thing you can do is take a stamp and spray that stamp with alcohol. Of course, you're not going to get this perfect impression, but it creates a very grunge-like impression, which I absolutely love. With this technique, it's very easy to just spray on top of the receipt paper, or you can use a pipette to make splashes on it, and as you can see, it reacts. So I love the way this one came out with the stamps, and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to use this cling on stamp and spray it with my alcohol ink, and I'm just going to press it into the receipt. And as you can see, the spaces around it become dark, while there is like a white bleach line, almost bleach look in the impression area. So here I'm just going through this process and playing with it. I don't know why I was having trouble with some of the receipts for some reason as I was showing this. Some of the receipts didn't want to react as much. Maybe they've been out in the sun too much. I don't know. But I'm just kind of playing along with this. The other thing that receipts act to, since this is thermal paper, is heat. So if you use any type of heat source, it's going to darken up the paper. Not burn the paper, it's just going to darken the paper. So I use my heat gun. You don't need to use a stencil. You can just go straight into altering the look of the receipt by blowing the heat gun in targeted areas, and as you can see, I did it on the edges and they became darker, but I kind of used the stencil to give me like a random pattern, so it's not going all over the place. As you can see, it's not going to be a clear impression with the stencils, but it just creates this nice textured look that's very effortless. Here I'm taking some other stamps. I don't clean my stamps, so I'm pretty sure some of the ink from previous sessions kind of got on it, which is okay. Now I want to go in and I'm really playing around and experimenting myself, because the results are never quite the same. But what I found is if I stamp first and then going back in with the heat tool, the stamp images become a little bit more pronounced. So that's what I'm doing in some of the areas. The back of the receipts do not react much. So you want to really target your altering to the front of receipts. That's where it will react with the paper. So as you can see, it's not a clear impression with the heat gun, but it does create this like abstract textured image that I really love. And this is just a very easy, intuitive process, like I said. And I just love the shape of that flower, even though it's been abstracted. You can still see some of the stamped images kind of standing out. Like it kind of makes it more pronounced. So I really like the way these look. This is one of my favorite stencils from Tim Holtz, the flower ones. I use it quite a lot. But you can use whatever you have in hand. Another thing you can do is the paper still reacts. So even though I use the heat gun to create these blacker areas, you can always go in with more alcohol and just start it splattering. So that's what I did with the previous one, and it's like it erases those areas. You can even draw in. You can get a pencil, not pencil, maybe a fountain pen or a stick or something, and then just draw into these areas with alcohol. You can go back in and spray into receipts that you've already done. And with this being alcohol, this dries pretty quickly. But like I said, it's kind of something you just play and experiment, and you kind of see, it kind of gives you a history of the things that you spent. But you can make, you can use it to document some of the things that you consumed in your life, but kind of alter it in an artistic, slightly grungy way and make it your own. Now you can leave these as is. I'm going to show you some of my results, but you can also add to it. I love how these, most of these come out. Some of them came out very faint. Like I said, I didn't know why, they weren't reacting as much, and some of them are more pronounced, but you can get a variety. It's always unexpected what happens, but I really love the look of these. Some of these I might go back in and like trace over the areas and like maybe even define it with ink. But I did some in the few days ago to add color. You can add alcohol inks, or you can add coffee, ground coffee, and that's what I did with the brown one. Add coffee, and then I went back in and sprayed it with alcohol. And the coffee does kind of neutralize it in some areas. I didn't do it here, but it does have add a beautiful brown and black effect. Here I'm trying to stamp through some of the stencils, see what that will look like. As you can see, I went to Whataburger. But again, this is just a fun process. You never know what you're gonna get, and it's not hard at all. It's just something that you have fun and experiment. And a lot of times, a lot of these ideas, these techniques comes from me just trying something out. So I love how that one turned out. But like the way this came out, you never would have expected, well, I never would have expected that this technique came out until we had the pandemic. And then I found out, since I was using alcohol all the time and receipts are always in my car, I didn't know it would react this way. And so it was a nice, pleasant discovery, even during a time that I know it was difficult for a lot of people. So it kind of shows you, even in troublesome times, even in harder times, discoveries can be made. Anyway, getting a little too deep there. But I'm still going in with a stencil. The process hasn't changed. I'm just alternating back and forth, seeing what I can come up with. Again, the coffee ground look, I would definitely give it a try. Even though I didn't show it on here, it's still an interesting technique. So I'm going to get out a few other stamps. Klingon stamps I wanted to try out that I remembered that I had. So that's what I'm doing right here. I have a world map stamp and this little lace stamp from Joann's and a script stamp, and I really like how this one turned out. I love how the script looks, and I'm just gonna go in and stamp it and go back in with my heat tool. You don't want to get the heat tool too close if you're doing this. I'm just kind of making it more pronounced. So you don't want to keep it on there too long because, of course, it will alter the image. Just spray it with rubbing alcohol. As you can see, it erases a lot of the text that was previously there. And now I'm going to dry it to make those areas a little bit more pronounced. And isn't that gorgeous? I've been really wanting to try out this lace stamp. And so I'm just going to take it, spray it, and push it on this existing one. And again, take the key tool, slightly go over it. And again, beautiful. So you could just experiment. You can go crazy with this. It's a great way to recycle. And just make, found objects your own. So here are the results of the ones that I just did. And now I'm going to get ready to, you're going to see how I use them in a journal spread. Of course, I can't use all these, so I'll just leave them for collage fodder for another day. But here I have this journal that I made for Messy May, which I still have not started. I will be working in this. So this is going to be more of a Messy June kind of journal, or knowing me, it's going to be whatever I want it to be type of journal. And I'm just taking things that I have on my desk, found objects from different types of material, and I'm going to take these receipts and glue them in. Now it's important because usually I use Fabri-Tac when a lot of times I use Fabri-Tac, but Fabri-Tac, you don't want to use that type of glue with these receipts because I'm pretty sure that Fabri-Tac has some kind of adhesive that is going to react with your receipts. So you want to use like your typical glue stick or tape runner, something that's not going to react to the paper. Anyway, I'm layering some pieces. I had this label sticker and I thought I was going to add this journal entry. I couldn't find my pen, and I usually don't like how my writing looks, but I decided to try it to see if it works. I did not like it, so I just take another one and decided to add that piece later. So I'm taking a picture of myself and I'm recutting that piece. I love these little holographic labels that I got at Michael's. I use them a lot and I try to use every piece of it. So here I'm just figuring out the layout of how I want things to be placed. And I got the little, I'm just going to cut the edges. And I got the little card from like a fashion card set. I think overall I don't end up using it. I'm looking as I'm playing this back. I kind of wish I just kept it like this with minimal colors, but knowing me, I did go back in to eventually add colors. But I'm looking at this and it seems to work with just these colors. But as you keep going, sometimes you get carried away. I still like the result of how this ended, but now I'm going to work on the other side. And take some more of these receipts. And then I have this piece of paper that's been coffeed and tea stained that I made a while ago. And I love the darkness of it. This piece adds a lot of contrast and it really makes the receipt backgrounds pop. So as you can see, these receipts make great background textures to any journal page or anything that you want to do. And this is the one where I stamped the script text on it, and I love the way that looks. It's so simple, so minimal. It's really pretty. So I'm taking the rest of that. I'm taking another fashion card and another piece of torn ephemera along with the backing of that tag, and I'm going to take the rest of it and kind of use the negative because I always like the look of that, and that kind of makes it cohesive on both sides with the holographic. Again, I usually use every piece of these tags, so I'm going to repeat that on the other side. And this adds, like I said, it adds an element of cohesiveness and just pulls things together. I didn't want to keep this woman. I kind of covered this lady up because I like the illustration, but at the same time, the way she was smiling was kind of creepy. So, sorry, lady, covered her up. And what I really liked about that illustration was the little doodle watercolor flowers in the corner. So it added a pop of color to a very neutral page. And I kind of wanted to repeat that. So what I did is I have these paint markers from Artistro and transparent sticky notes that I rarely use, and I was trying to mimic that those watercolor flowers. So once you use paint pens, you know, there's before it dries, you can kind of go back in with water to diffuse it to make it look more like a watercolor. And that's what I'm doing here. Again, now that I look at it, it looks maybe a little bit too bright. I couldn't decide if I wanted color or if I should have just kept it, you know, pretty neutral. But I'm just taking some water with a brush and doodling some watercolor like flowers onto this sticky note. And it still felt too bright, but I wanted to see how it would look behind behind some of these elements. And the reason why I did this on transparent sticky notes, you don't have to, but I love that sense of layering. I love that sense of being able to see what's underneath. So that's a common theme that you will see in a lot of my art journal spreads. Again, I'm just trying it out, I'm not going in. I didn't really, plan on what these flowers should look like. I'm just kind of mimicking what I see in that little ephemera. I like these paint pens from Artistro. They sent it to me a while ago, and you do have to shake them up, but that's with most paint pens. You really need to shake them up, but they have a really great set. It's very affordable. You get a lot of great colors, actually. So as you can see it's transparent, so I'm just going to take it off. I let it dry a little bit, took the heat tool, and now I'm just trying to layer it to where it will look nice. I'm going to cut off the excess parts that I don't need, and then mimic the other side and put it in the corner kind of behind my pictures. And I love the colors, but at the same time, I feel like, oh, this is it's too loud because I couldn't decide if I wanted minimal or if I wanted it to color. So what I'm doing is I'm taking another post-it note, and here's where I'm going to add my journaling. And you can't really see my journaling because I'm writing it in white. Sometimes when I don't know what to say, I just make up some moody quote. That doesn't always make sense, so you don't really need to see it. But I'm taking this pencil, white pencil, and this transparent sticky note is pretty good on the material, and I also use a gel pen, and I'm going to layer it on top so that way it dulls down the colors. And again, the layering allows you to see both the text, the receipt underneath, and those colorful flowers. So I'm just going to glue those down and layer the sticky notes on top, so that way it kind of calms down the page just a little bit. Now I couldn't decide the little yellow fashion figure, even though I loved it, I couldn't decide if it made it look like there was too much. The yellow was kind of looking too loud, and now with those flowers, it was becoming too loud for me. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, well, maybe I should have kept it like this. So it took me a while to figure out how I wanted to incorporate this. It didn't look bad, but it kept bothering me. So I'm gonna, as you can see, I'm gonna go through here, try to rearrange some of these pieces to see if it works out. And I could tell you right now, I'm going to take that little splash, that little figure out after I tore up repeatedly. I'm going to put her to the side for another day. But right now, I'm just kind of struggling playing with it to, see what works. I think I kept the hip part because I did like that contrast of black. And I'm going to take this other part of the receipt. Again, I like the way that look. It's been distorted. It's been altered. It looks a little grungy. And I'm going to try to place it. But the page would have worked just great if I just left it at these like this. But no, I couldn't. I'm still going in trying to see if I should add more. You know me, I love floral, so I had to, try real quick to see if I could add a floral to make it work. Think I decided to place this down, stick this down, and I'm still going through little scraps of paper on my desk to see what works and try to come up with the final placement. So I'm looking for a floral. I'm trying to see, should I do that? And I went against it pretty quickly. I didn't like the way it looked. So I'm taking that piece that I tore from the little fashion card and I'm gluing that there because, again, contrast. I feel like you have to have the right amount of contrast. And then it balances with the black that it's on top of the page. And you can still see that peak of hollow peeping out just the way I like it. I'm going to glue this piece of neutral paper. And finally, I'm going to glue my picture down. But yes, I hope you enjoyed this technique. Tell me, what types of papers do you have lying around that you like to use and recycle? Again, this is a great way to recycle. As you can see, I'm just taking this gel pen and adding some little white dots to the coffee paper, and I'm going to cut off the edges. But this is a great way to recycle things.